What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Basem Hanna podcast. So today I'm going to take a deep dive into one of my favorite subjects, sadly, which is rejection. As an entrepreneur or as anybody that's trying to better themselves, you're going to inevitably come into contact with rejection, either somebody or something resisting or stopping you from getting what you want. Usually it's in the form of a no. So think you really want a good job and they don't hire you. You are, in my case, I'm often raising money and they say no, or I'm trying to acquire property and I don't get it. So instead of just talking about, you got to bounce back and you got to be resilient and all this stuff, I wanted to take a deeper dive into what I try and do when I'm facing rejection in the face. So let's just play out a scenario. Somebody says no, right? Whatever it is, the proverbial "I'm sorry, but it's not going to work out." It's like the business world's version of a breakup. Here's what I do. The most important step is to absorb the blow gracefully. You have to be classy, right? Because this is a small world, and normally the circles that you roll in for the things that you do, everybody talks. So if you hear a no and all of a sudden you're flying off the handle and you're cussing people out and you're you're losing your mind, or you look grumpy or whatever, it's a bad look, and ultimately it just looks bad on you. So step one is take that hit gracefully, and while you're in the room with them, pay close attention to the feedback they're giving you. Oftentimes, if people are throwing rejection your way, they are going to give you a reason. No one is that mean that they're just like no and walk away, unless it's like a unsolicited telemarketing phone call. And even then, if they don't if they don't give you that feedback that you're looking for, there is no shame in asking for it yourself. Be like, can I ask why? Right? And while they're giving you that why, whether they've given it to you voluntarily or you've had to ask for it, listen. It's for your own growth and feedback that you should listen to what they have to say. So, and I know that's going to be really difficult, and from my own experience, because you're already mad that you're not getting your way, and then to kind of put that part of your brain aside and say, okay, I need to listen and turn on the critical thinking part of my brain and absorb this feedback. It's hard, right? So you have to practice it, or at least consciously know that you need to do it. The next step is the most important. Just say thank you and walk away. Just cool down, go take an hour or two, a day or two, a week or two, whatever the amount of time that you need to start thinking clearly again. Oftentimes it's just a few breaths, just sit in your car or sit in the room or whatever and just go, and everything's okay. Your life isn't going to end. Everybody deals with failure. So once you've had that moment of clarity and you've cooled down, it's time to start analyzing that feedback they give you. Maybe all the feedback they give you don't agree with, but there will often be things that if you're being true and honest with yourself, you'll be like, you know what? They're probably right. I don't want to admit it to anybody but myself, but they're probably right. You got to take the accountability to know that it's in your control to turn that failure into a learning experience, and so that the next time you're in that situation, you can be successful. But you need to take that feedback and internalize it. And then finally, it's in that scenario where they give you feedback and you don't listen to it, right? So it's like, I think the reason I'm not doing it is this, and this. And you hear this, and this, and be like, man, that person's a total idiot. I don't agree with them. Thank you, next. Then the next person comes and tells you the same thing or something similar. You're like, forget him. There's two idiots in the world. And then a third person says it. And that's when you really have to start thinking and accept the fact that you may not like what they're saying, but just because you don't like it, it doesn't mean it's not true. And in the event that you have multiple parties giving you the same feedback, whether you like to admit it or not, oftentimes there is at least some validity in what they're saying. So it's in those moments that you have to take an even deeper dive into yourself and into what you're doing and evaluate, am I truly right and they're all wrong? Which can sometimes be the case. But oftentimes it's, damn, they were right and I hate to admit it. And it might take you a long time to admit it to yourself, but there is validity in what they're saying. If you have multiple data points that are telling you the same thing, you do need to at least pay attention to it. And I'm not saying you need to accept it right away. And there is instances where they're wrong and maybe you're creating a new way to do something and they're just not seeing it your way. And in that instance, you need to have the strength of conviction to know, and hopefully the data or the knowledge to back that up. But in the other 95% of the time, you got to understand that you might just not want to hear what they have to say, but it's probably true. And that is really how I deal with rejection. Like I said, I'm in a business and in an industry, and I've chosen a career path that forces me to face rejection and failure in the face all the time. It's almost like I have two passengers in my life car. I have failure and rejection and stress, and they both sit in the front seat with me. We share a bench. And it's learning to deal with those two passengers that allows me to keep driving down that road to success. So I really hope this advice helps somebody that's dealing with it right now, but you can take steps to make sure that you're learning from it and that it doesn't consume you. That's our podcast for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Till next time.